Welcome to the A.D.K Rock and Metal channel. My name is Kirk, and today I'm going to be exploring the new album by Swedish legends Dark Tranquility called Endtime Signals. So let me give you some background on this group if you are not familiar with them. They are a Swedish band who really are credited as one of the three pioneers of what we now know as the Gothenburg sound, more commonly referred to as melodic death metal. This is their 13th album, and there's been some lineup changes over the years. The current lineup, let's go through that. So we've got founder member and legendary vocalist Mikael Stanner on the microphone, who also writes the lyrics. We've got Martin Brandström on keyboards and main songwriting duties. He's also a founding member of the band. Then he's joined by Johan Reinholdt on guitars and songwriting. He joined for the 2020 album. And the group is rounded off by Joachim Strandberg Nielsen on drums and Christian Jansson on bass. The other three founder members who departed, it wasn't actually that long ago. They've kept a stable lineup for most of their time, up until 2016. And that was when Martin Henriksson, who was the original bass player who switched to rhythm guitar, departed. 2020, we saw the departure of Niklas Sundin, alias the lead guitar player. And then in 2021, the founding drummer Anders Givarp also left the group. So their 2020 album Moment earned mixed reviews. That means the question here is whether this can be the return to form that they need. Let's find out. The first question you've got to ask here is, how many of the boxes do they tick in the melodic death metal genre that they helped to create, really? Because in my opinion, this has become very stagnant and predictable, and that can always lead to a backlash against the founding fathers of a certain musical movement, and I'm pleased to say that that's definitely not the case here. So when we come to track number 1, Shivers and Voids, it starts with a guitar progression that resonates in Lament of Better Times, and then gives way to like a dissonant screech of guitar, which seems to have the aim of harmonizing with an air raid siren. The drummer works his way in after a succession of dramatic hits before Michael Steiner's voice takes over the mix. Sorry, I just called him Michael Steiner there, it's Mikael Steiner. Energy levels are high here and the mood is low, and that's the paradox that you get with this type of music. I would say it's, if you wanted to break it down, Iron Maiden with the gothic overtones of Paradise Lost, but this is Dark Tranquility's sound, and many have copied it over the years. They're definitely not indebted to those two fantastic groups I've just mentioned there. Seldom do the guitars accept a subordinate role in this album, and certainly not on the opening song, and the guitarists really do furnish their fretboard with great freedom without deviating away from conventional anthemic song structures. When we move on to track number 2, Unforgivable, this is one of the songs that's just hard hitting, straight at you, slamming death metal, headbanging. You can thrash away to this. Low tuned guitars with a thrust of at the gates, really is how you would describe it. It's definitely one for the mosh pit to embrace with wild-eyed enthusiasm. They're quick to reach the bridge here with your half-timing drums, which you come to expect from this group. But the chorus is actually a rapid, it's a contrast of skank beats and growling vocals. It's quite interesting how they actually set those two things apart rather than towards a convergence. So this to me is how you write anthemic death metal and inject it with a sense of heroism. Nobody does it better than Dark Tranquility. Moving on to track number 3, Neuronal Fire. This is perhaps the most subtle composition on the album. The tempo and the aggression are metal, but the chords are closer to shoegaze in the chorus. A wave of restless sadness flows out of the amps with latent pianos in support, which you can easily overlook if you're just concentrating on the high tempo action. Imagine scar symmetry under the influence of the last Svalbard album. So that's unique, isn't it, that we're actually mentioning a contemporary band like that post-blackened hardcore Bristol group Svalbard. But there are similarities here with the tone of this song and the last Svalbard album. I mean, listen how an advanced melodic solo adds to the textures with great respect here. Admittedly, you won't get that on a Svalbard album. This is pure heavy metal, but there's so much thought gone into the fretwork on this solo. There's a chance you've already seen our reaction to the lead single from this album, track number 4, called Not Nothing, and it's definitely one of the standout compositions here. You can see why they released this in advance. of this album. So to me, you can imagine Nick Holmes of Paradise Lost here singing the words in the intro with like a furrowed brow. But the riff that follows is quite spectacular, the way it has that head swinging rotation. And Stanner really does empty his stomach here of blood and guts when he switches to his harsher vocals. You will find it hard to just resist throwing your arms up in the air here. This is anthemic with a capital A, yet there's a lot of melancholia in here as well. So again, contrasting emotions. And I would say artists looking to expand their songwriting chops without sacrificing the metallic edge could learn something from this song. I mean, they even slip in a nod to Temple of Love by the Sisters of Mercy for a brief 10 seconds in here. I don't know if that's deliberate, but I certainly heard it in there as well. When we move on to track number 5, Drowned Out Voices, you're already asking that question about Michael Stanner. He's got one of the most perspicuous voices in death metal. It's so clear. The enunciation is fantastic, and there aren't many vocalists better than him in this genre. I really do mean that. I mean, here, basically the question is, are you ready for some down-tuned chugging and flesh-ripping vocals? The switch to the anthemic chorus with melodic phrasing is classic Dark Tranquility, and they've already done this 2 times before we get to track number 5. And it's part of their DNA, isn't it? I mean, it'll remind you of Paradise Lost, but this is something they can claim to be synonymous with their own music, even if it sounds like Gregor McIntosh is providing the guitar timbers here. Maybe the decision to recycle the chorus at the end by going up an octave is a bit self-indulgent, but it's the only time they do it on this record. And when we get to One of Us Is Gone, that's when you understand at track number 6 that this is the perfect place to insert an introspective rock ballad. Dark Tranquility show their experience here. They know how to keep you interested in an album of 12 songs and 50 minutes, and you can't just have 12 bangers because it's easy to zone out. So I think this is a very wise decision to introduce gentle pianos and a brooding cello that really does set the tone and urgency for a moment of quiet solitude, and Stanner is happy to oblige here by using his melodic head voice, which he does to great effect. Perhaps the question when we get to track number 7 is, should we be approaching side B of this record with an element of trepidation? Because how can they maintain the high standards of side A? If they were to do that on side B, this would be a near perfect album, which it isn't. It's a very strong album, though. We'll come to that at the end when I give my reasons why. Track number 7 here, The Last Imagination, it almost enters a bleak phase in the introduction to this song with slower tempos, yet it somehow has pretensions to be more epic. And then just when you're engaging or feeling the alienation of the intro here, you know, it does start like a great wrist slasher, to use that term, but then it transforms into a high tempo metal bludgeoning with the trademark halftime in chorus to balance the rapid drums of the verse part. So the Axemen here, the guitarists, they give their fingers a real workout with fast alt-picking action and abundant scale formations in their riffing. Basically, this is what My Dying Bride would sound like if you asked them to write melodic death metal. Track number 8, Enforced Perspective. Standard technical thrash with Iron Maiden's gallop until they add the keyboards and the death metal voice, and then you get Dark Tranquility. You're tempted to ask, is this the one filler song on the album? But no, that's not fair, because think about it, this is not too different from the emotional intensity of Svalbard or Pupil Slicer. Dark Tranquility are not afraid to expand their musical palettes here, even if they do it on their own terms and in a method that suits their idiosyncrasies. However, I did mention the F-word filler, and unfortunately we do get one at track number 9, Our Disconnect. 5 minutes and 19 seconds, and at the beginning you're wondering if they've been listening to Europe for inspiration. The keyboard stand, yes, Europe, as in the band that did the Final Countdown. Don't worry, they don't have a hook like that song, but they are using keyboards really as if they're aimed at a stadium rock audience. I mean, don't get me wrong, the bubbling synth bass effects and crunchy chug riffing keep them firmly in a melodic death metal realm once you factor in the hostile vocals, but yeah, to me it just seems written for a live audience, doesn't quite work in this context. Unfortunately, they then follow it with another filler, so we've got 2 consecutive songs which in my opinion don't really do anything. I'm talking about track number 10, Wayward Eyes. There's almost a sense of optimism in this effort which does not match the mood of the record. The guitars are distorted and colourful and really not afraid to sparkle before Stanner unleashes his best aha voice for the chorus. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's no need to be offended by this. His death metal personality dominates, but it just feels like a bonus track here, as if they were trying to show people, look, we're good songwriters, this is how you do it in 2 hours, starting from A to get to B, on to C to D to E, etc. Doesn't really connect with me. Fortunately, track number 11 is an absolute fucking rager. It's called A Bleaker Sun. It's only 4 minutes and 23 seconds long, and it's easily the heaviest track on the album. Back to the head down death metal. I mean, Megadeth used to write riffs like this in the mid 1980s, and they sound even better, to be honest, with Stanner's vocals and the idiosyncratic switch to a sorrowful chorus, which always points towards an aching heart, doesn't it? And that's so unique about this band, but they really do combine the two styles here, that really glorious thrash metal urgency, and then, you know, just to drag you back from self-destruction and into sorrowful solitude. Not many bands can do that, and these are masters at it. And I'm pleased to say, when we get to track number 12, the closing song, False Reflection, wow, how ambitious is this song? This is the piano-led nostalgia. It really arrives like the epilogue of an enchanting novel. Their understanding of melody here is admirable. Listen to the fluttering keyboard motif work through the arpeggios over the ringing guitar chords as Stanner asks, what are we if not a false reflection? It's a poignant way to end the album. So what are my final thoughts on this record? Well, it's a definite return to form. You would have guessed that by now, listening to this review. I'm really impressed by this album. The death metal elements are heavier than anything post 2007, and the quality and imagination of the guitar work deserves the highest of praise here. What can we say about Mikael Stanner? He's one of the most passionate and distinctive vocalists in metal, and his enunciation is so impressive for somebody using such a harsh tone. And of course, he does also have a good singing voice as well, which is rich in melody. Apart from the two fillers near the end, this is a highly enjoyable piece of melodic death metal with enough offshoots of experimentation to easily retain your interest. So we need to score this. Let's give it a verdict. The judgment then, there are 4 levels to this, and we do this where the highest scoring possible, you are considered a headliner. The second highest score, you would be the main support. The third highest would be the opener, as in the opening band on a festival bill. And if we cannot get into this album, it does not resonate with us, and we ultimately don't like it, we would say back to rehearsals. So it should be very clear here, this album is a headliner opus. Few, if any, bands in the melodic death metal genre are ready to upstage the old masters just yet. So go out and buy it on CD and vinyl, download it and stream it. This album was released on the 16th of August via Century Media Records. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to the A.D.K Rock and Metal channel, and I will see you on the next video.